In this lesson we're going to look at the last ratio in trigonometry, which is called the cosine ratio. Now if we look at the triangles in front of us in orange here, we can see an angle of 26 degrees in all the triangles, but we can see that the sides are slightly different than last time. We're looking at the adjacent side, which is here, and the hypotenuse side. So as before, if we divide these two, as long as we've got an angle of 26 degrees in our triangle, we divide these two sides of adjacent divided by hypotenuse, you will get 0.9. In the next triangle, 9 divided by 10, 0.9, and 14.4 divided by 16, 0.9. Basically any triangle with an angle of 26 degrees in it, as long as it's right angled, and if you divide the adjacent by the hypotenuse, as long as you measure accurately, you can try this yourself, it should come out to be 0.9. And as you adjust the triangle to a different number of degrees, the relationship should still exist. And this is called the cos or the cosine of that angle. So in this case here, the cosine of 26 degrees is 0.9, or roughly 0.9 when you're rounding your answer. So if you type cos 26 into your calculator, it should pop out to be 0.9 roughly. And if you did the same thing with a triangle with 54 degrees in it, and you divided adjacent by hypotenuse, you would come out with an answer that when you typed cos 54 in, you would get the same answer. So we can define this as the cosine ratio. The cosine of an angle is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse side, as long as you've labelled your triangle properly. And this works in any right angle triangle for an angle between 0 and 90, right up to 89. So let's look at an example on how to use it. So as before, calculating the adjacent side using cos. So we've got this k here, which is cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, to remind us of the formula. And draw the triangle out. So draw your triangle out, putting all the important information in, and then label it. So this is the hypotenuse. This is the opposite side here. Again, to remind you, if the angle was up here, this would be the opposite side, and adjacent down here. So the formula, use the q, so cos q is adjacent over hypotenuse, and just fill in the information as we did every other time. We know that q is 23, so we can write cos 23. The adjacent side in this example is x, so we'll call it an x, and the hypotenuse is 14. And there's no new tricks or anything like that, it follows exactly the same pattern. You multiply cos 23 by 14 to get x, and make sure you put the cos 23 in brackets, or either put the 14 first, do 14 times cos 23. That comes out to be 12.887 and so on. Round it to 1 or 2 decimal places, or remember, if it asks for a certain rounding, that will be worth a mark in your question. So just to remind you of what you've done, you've learnt these three ratios. Tan is opposite over adjacent, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and cos is adjacent over hypotenuse.